Welcome back. This is Take Action News. I'm Carl Frisch. All afternoon, more about me at carlfrisch.com. That's KARLFRISCH.com. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. And if you happen to have used the internet this week, you no doubt will know about this story. It is the story of a openly gay liberal state representative from the great state of Massachusetts, Carl Sciortino, who in his first television commercial for his campaign for Congress in the open special election for Ed Markey's seat, the 5th Congressional District, decides to come out to his Tea Party father, but not in the way you might be thinking. Let's go ahead and listen to the ad now.
I'm Carl Sciortino, and I'll never forget that conversation with my dad.
That's me.
Where I had to come out and tell him
Wait for this.
that I was a Massachusetts liberal.
And he's proud of it.
Dad's in the Tea Party.
Damn right. It was bad enough him taking on the big banks and corporations in the legislature.
They weren't paying their fair share in taxes
And he wrote the buffer zone law.
to protect women entering abortion clinics from harassment.
It's going all the way to Supreme Court. I was kind of proud of that.
But here's the one that drives him crazy.
He wants to go to Congress to take on the NRA and the Tea Party.
I won't give up on an assault weapons ban.
Or universal background checks, or banning high-capacity magazines.
There are some things you don't stop fighting for. Also the right to choose, equal pay for women, and equal rights for, well, everybody.
He's been like this for 35 years.
It's why I approve this message. And I still love you, Dad.
Me too, son.
It's so adorable. It's such a good message, too. Joining me now to talk about the ad and his campaign and the impact the ad has had on his campaign, State Representative from the great state of Massachusetts, Carl Sciortino. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks for having me on and for your help and getting the word out about this ad. It's really been a pleasure this week to see it take off.
Absolutely. So, you guys shoot this ad, and I have empathy because I have an extremely conservative father myself. I remember I was reading the website Gawker, which actually had a great piece about your ad in it. And I saw a story about Herman Cain, who was running for president, and it said, if you thought Herman Cain's first video was crazy, whether you see this one. And then I click on it and I start watching it, and I'm like, oh, that looks familiar. That looks like my parents' house. And then my father appeared on the screen, and I determined that my father was in a Herman Cain video for Herman Cain's presidential campaign. So I have a Tea Party dad myself.
I'm sorry. But I don't get along with him. I get along with mine at least.
Yeah, that's right. So you guys shoot the ad. It goes on television. What's the reception been?
It's been overwhelming, really fantastic. We have over, I think, something around 310,000 hits on YouTube at last count. We've had a lot of people signing up on carlforcongress.com to volunteer and donate money. It's really taken off in the campaign. And, you know, frankly, this has been a very, very quiet congressional race until now. And all the attention has been about this ad and, well, progressive politics and fighting with my Tea Party father. It's a great piece on so many levels and has really gotten a lot of people. Our office right now, I'm down the hall, it's filled with volunteers who are busy calling away, and they've all shown up and really gotten super engaged. We've had a great base of support up until now, but this week it exploded. It's just taken off in a really strong way.
Well, you know, I've seen you all over MSNBC and CNN and every place, but I don't think anybody's asked you how you got started in politics, which is an interesting story in and of itself.
Yeah, you know, I did not plan my life around politics. I studied biology in college. I was actually working at a community health center in the research department. I expected to go into a public health or science track in my life, but the 2003 same-sex marriage court case in Massachusetts, the Goodrich court case, galvanized a lot of people around here. I was 25 at the time. I'm openly gay. I was out then, and I went to meet with my state rep, who had been in the legislature as a Democrat for 14 years. He was a conservative Dem. I went to his office hours in the senior center in town and went as a constituent to say, please don't vote to take away my right to marriage. There was a constitutional amendment being proposed. And he was so insulting in that conversation. It wasn't just a yes or a no or a conversation. It was a you people this and you people that. Very dehumanizing moment for me as a constituent. I literally walked out of that room and felt very inspired to want to run for office. I took him on. I announced 2 months later my campaign to challenge him in the primary. I beat him in the primary that September 2004 by just 93 votes. So
wow.
I was shocked. He was more shocked. He tried to do a write-in campaign to keep the seat and waged a really homophobic race, but we beat that back too and managed to pull through. I've been in the state legislature for the last 9 years ever since then.
Well, do you think you learned how to get along with people while maintaining your progressive ideals as a result of that initial exchange with this guy? I mean, somebody who would have a difference of opinion with you being so vicious and nasty.
I actually think my expectations of my meeting with my state rep were let down so much because of my relationship with my father. I mean, my father is really conservative, and we do really bicker and banter and argue about our politics all the time, but with love and you know, with the way that we can actually respect each other at some human level, and to walk into a room where, you know, I expected to at least have some level of human respect and saw nothing of that was honestly quite jarring as a constituent. To have your state rep look at you in the face and call you people is a very jarring moment. You know, and that did teach me, frankly, a lot in the legislature about not being afraid of the tough fights, not backing down to people who have very different opinions and very, very different values, but doing it in a way that's respectful, that's not dehumanizing, that's not belittling of people's role and constituencies and values. You know, I fight for my values tooth and nail, and I don't do anything to lose ever. But I also respect that people have different values and are fighting for their views in the way that.
Well, and I mean, if people just fought and they were nasty, it would make it even harder to work together when there is something in common. You know, a lot of people are just getting to know who you are as a candidate. Although this campaign's been going on for a while now, yeah. And you've got the support of places like People for the American Way, Blue America PAC, Human Rights Campaign, the Victory Fund, Mass Equality, Progressive Change Campaign Committee, Congressman Alan Grayson, Keith Ellison, Rahul Grijalva, Jared Polis, Mark Takano, and on and on and on. So you're obviously one of the more progressive candidates in this race. But in a place like Massachusetts, in a primary with several other, you know, state legislators and other elected officials, how do you distinguish yourself? What sets you apart from them in terms of progressive leadership?
Sure. Well, you know, I am running in a crowded primary, but I am the most consistent, strong, progressive candidate in this race. I've been in the State House for 9 years. I've served with 4 of the 6 other candidates in this field. I've worked pretty well with some of them, frankly, but I'm also the only one that co-founded the Progressive Caucus, that works within the Progressive Caucus to really do the organizing work behind the scenes to get better progressive outcomes in legislation. You know, I rolled up my sleeves and took on the speaker when it came to increasing the minimum wage even higher and closing corporate tax loopholes and reinvesting that money into our schools and infrastructure. I unlike most of the candidates in this race, or frankly all the candidates in this race, I do the work to get the job done as a progressive. I take on these fights, I organize, and I do think the organizing role is really important right now. When I look at what's happening in Washington, I know we're in a really bad place right now in Congress, but we need strong, bold progressives that are willing to stand up, fight for our values, and develop a strategy to win in the short term and in the long term. And frankly, I think a large part of that is knowing where your values are as progressives, having spine and backbone, as Paul Patrick says.
And fighting for it.
Fighting for it, absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. We've been chatting with Carl Sciortino. He is the state representative from the great state of Massachusetts. And if you want the ad that you heard at the top of this segment to appear on television, go to his website, carlforcongress.com, and chip in some money. The people of Massachusetts can see it, and they can elect Carl on October 15th. Carl, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Carl. I really appreciate your help.
This is Take Action News. I'm Carl Frisch, and we will be right back.